but it stops me bloody hair blowing around. Look at the state of this hat. What a stupid looking hat. Anyway, so at the moment there's no wind. I know once we get around the corner, it's going to be a very strong wind. Woo. Right. So I'm going to do I'm going to do 2 lives on this. We're going to do half a walk each live. So we're going to walk to the Black Post on here, on Elvis Presley Fan on Keto, and then on the way back we're going to do Elvis Presley long lost footage. I haven't had a chance to notify anyone, so not expecting many of you to join. So guys, we've had, hi Deborah, we've had another tricky day, anyway, just in case you don't know, 1 second. In case you don't know, guys, we've just done a we've just done we were sent a book called Priscilla and Elvis. It's an uncensored, unauthorized book, and I read out I think it was chapter, I can't remember which chapter it was now, it might have been 14, that discussed the divorce settlement. It actually, unusually, it actually had both divorce settlements in. So it had the first divorce settlement, and then obviously it had the second divorce settlement. It even showed that Priscilla had to accuse Elvis of fraud to get it reopened by the judge, so that she would be allowed to ask for more money. So this book, it was actually quite an easy read. Joanne sent it me, and the thing I did like about it, it was quite short and sweet. It wasn't too much to read. I don't like reading divorce documents. I find divorce stuff pretty boring. So this chapter that we read together, hi Hillbilly Cat, did you catch our little divorce settlement video we did? We just did a sneaky little half-hour one, and it's it was an unauthorized book. Yeah, I've done quite a few live streams and videos on the first and the second divorce and the divorce deposition. So this was just a cheap little book, and I thought I'm going to read the chapter that's called the divorce settlement. It shows that the first divorce settlement, obviously just after Priscilla runs off with Mike Stone, was pretty simple. In the one that I read, it said 100,000 lump sum. I think it said something, I'm trying to remember the figures now. It was something, I can't remember the figures that were in it. It was like 1,000 a month for one thing, another 600 for spousal payment. There was some property, maybe a motorbike, things like that. She was still using his check card, things like that, yeah? It was a pretty average divorce settlement. Elvis was always going to give Priscilla whatever she wanted, always. Even if the divorce settlement wasn't very generous, he was always going to top it up, wasn't he? Yeah. I'm walking to the Rocket and back. Yeah, with GGM. She was always going to, Elvis was always going to look after Priscilla and Lisa. Elvis was never going to see Priscilla go without, nor Lisa. Elvis always, even though him and Priscilla had obviously had lots of disagreements over many different things, he was always going to make sure she was okay, because she was Lisa's mum. So then in this little chapter that we read, it then very quickly goes on to say that Priscilla felt that she had been very inexperienced didn't really know what she was doing, nor did Elvis, and that the whole first divorce settlement was handled badly. So she gets lawyers that really do go for a lot of money. Now, this is what was written in this book. I don't think the figures are correct, but it says this time she wanted 2 million, half to be paid up front. I think she wanted 6,000 a month as some kind of settlement, and another 4,000 a month for spousal payments, and then 5% of 2 of Elvis's recording contracts. Yeah. So a massive amount of money. They sound okay. There's probably a couple of figures I've forgotten, but so Elvis, this is why the deed of trust was created, to place the debt on Graceland, the lien, the charge. Yeah. Now remember, placing that debt on Graceland gave Priscilla a lot of power, especially when Vernon had to decide whether or not to make Priscilla the co-executor. Months before he died, he had this very, very difficult decision. Who was going to be responsible for everything on behalf of Lisa Marie? Of course, it was going to be Priscilla. I personally don't think he really had much choice. I think legally he didn't have to do it, but I think as Priscilla's mum, he didn't really have a choice. Who else was he going to pick to look out for Lisa Marie? So I do understand why she was given that power, but I just don't agree with it. So unfortunately, because the first divorce settlement was so neatly done, I do think that Priscilla, when she went back to reopen everything with the judge, she had to accuse Elvis of some quite nasty things, basically fraud, so that the judge would allow her to ask for more money, for a better settlement, for a much bigger settlement. I personally think Priscilla's lawyers were very, very greedy, very, very greedy. Elvis couldn't afford it. Some say that he sold his recording rights pre-1973 to help pay for this horrible second divorce settlement. I can imagine Vernon and Elvis pulling their hair out. Couldn't believe that this woman, who, let's face it, wasn't with Elvis for that long. I really know, but I think Stone and Priscilla, oh sorry, I missed that. Did you say, I think, say that again, Matt. I think you referred to the 100K. It only lets me read the comments for about 3 seconds. I just think, even if the first settlement wasn't quite right, that is why she went back for more. We know that Priscilla squandered the money very quickly, vastly underestimated how much she needed every month. She tried to carry on living as if she was super rich. The money Elvis gave her wasn't going to let her live to that. And why should it? She wasn't a superstar. She wasn't a rock and roll star. She wasn't making movies. She wasn't touring America doing concerts. So why should she have that kind of wealth? Because she had married Elvis for a few years, really, with one child. I just think she was very cruel, and I don't think the world knows just how cruel Priscilla was on that second divorce settlement. Honestly, guys, I think the world is tricked into thinking that Priscilla was very sweet to Elvis, that the divorce was very amicable. One of the most common stories that are said is of the day they divorced, how they left holding hands in Santa Monica, is it? And Elvis whispered in her ear, I think it was something like always and forever. And even singing the song even, yes, in the pre-1973 catalogue. But even singing the song I Will Always Love You by Dolly Parton, even that, I think it's been proved that that didn't happen. So the world are told a fairy tale that it was a very sweet, amicable breakup, that Elvis and Priscilla were still in love and still loved being together, and that they were very close and good friends even after the divorce. They even tried to say that they got on really well before the divorce, and it was more that Elvis was unfaithful and was away a lot. Elvis at one point on one of his concerts says, I was away too much. He tries to take the blame. He tries to forgive Priscilla. But the truth is, Priscilla was up to no good. She was unfaithful. She had very greedy intentions financially, money-wise, fame-wise. She had big ideas for the future, big aspirations for fame, for wealth, for success, for being in the limelight. So the sort of fairy tale where we're told where they had a sweet little relationship, they even parted in a real nice way, and they stayed friends after the divorce, I just think it's bullshit. I think a lot of it was done, even partly by Elvis, to make the public feel that everything was okay, to put Lisa Marie at ease, make her feel that everything was okay because she was so young. I'm not falling for it. I think behind the scenes there was a lot of arguments, and I think Priscilla was very greedy. And the truth is, what is the real reason that Priscilla left Elvis? She fancied other men. Now, we can't just ignore the fact that Elvis was up to no good as well. We can't ignore that. That wouldn't be fair. Hi, Elizabeth. It wouldn't be fair. I think the wind's gone. Take me out off. Oh, the wind stopped. That's a good sign. So I'm going to try and do 2 lives. This one is about the divorce settlement. Now, that's weird. You know what? Half an hour ago, the wind was really bad. Like, you couldn't even stand in it. It was strong wind. Now it's not. Weird. So I'm going to take it behind the scenes. We're going to do a live here, and we're going to do a live on Elvis long lost footage as well. So, look, I'm trying to be fair. I'm trying to defend Elvis without 100% blaming everything on Priscilla, because that just wouldn't come across as a fair way to defend. Elvis made mistakes. Elvis wasn't ready to get married. Elvis had seen other women. Elvis was with the Memphis Mafia a lot. He would go away making his movies, doing his tours. He liked the company of the Memphis Mafia. So, you know, I understand it wasn't everything that Priscilla could want. But then there is another story. Priscilla liked the men. Priscilla wanted to do her own thing. Liked the attention of men. Fancied other men. Was unfaithful. Loved spending Elvis's money. Took advantage of Elvis. So they both played a part. I don't think Priscilla was ready to have a child. I really don't. I think Priscilla having a child, when secretly she was very ambitious, wanted fame and fortune, wanted to see the world, wanted to live as a single woman with Elvis. I think it was a marriage ready for disaster, really. So when I read the divorce settlement, I sort of think, you two were so wrong for each other. Now, one of the most common things that are said is, well, at least it gave us Lisa. So we can't disagree with that, can we? We all love Lisa. Lisa was the spitting image of her father. They really were alike in so many ways, even in personality. So I agree, it gave us Lisa. And I think the world would have been very different without Lisa. Now, this sort of iconic image that has sort of tricked the world, you know, the iconic image of Elvis and Priscilla together, this fairy tale, this fake fairy tale that really never really happened, did it? Millions and millions of people around the world are always gonna be hooked on this dream of Elvis and Priscilla, who met in Germany very young and eventually moved to Graceland, got married, had Lisa Marie, had a so-called fairy tale marriage. Then the only reason it went wrong is because Elvis was unfaithful and became unwell. I don't think Priscilla will ever be blamed for the breakup of that marriage, even though she did play a massive part of the reason that marriage broke up. So when I read the divorce settlement, I just see someone on the second divorce settlement, I just see someone clambering to get as much money as she could, to get her pound of flesh, not really caring that he was becoming more unwell. Remember, this settlement was still being argued out in 1977, just before Elvis died. I don't think there was enough care for how unwell Elvis started to look. Now, Priscilla does say that Elvis in 1973, when they walked out of the Santa Monica courthouse holding hands, she did say that his hands were puffy, his face was puffy, his body was heavier, and I think I've heard Priscilla say this a few times. So just the whole thing is a bit of a tragedy for both people, I would say, for both people. I just wish Priscilla hadn't become so greedy, wasn't so cruel in how she was unfaithful with the Steve Peck, the dance instructor, with choosing Mike Stone, who was a karate champion. That obviously humiliated, embarrassed Elvis. Mike Stone being a well-known karate expert. That was never going to sit right with Elvis. Elvis was always going to be very seriously distraught by her choice of men. Even the dance instructor, it's very close to home. Some say he was at the 68 comeback rehearsals. Even that, it is worrying. Some say that he was trying to pluck up the courage to tell Elvis, but then couldn't find it in him to tell Elvis, and that he chickened out, he bottled out. Is that true? Put it in the comments, guys. I actually don't know if that's true. So that's it, really. So we're going to come back now. We're going to go on to Elvis Presley long lost footage, and we're going to carry on discussing what we've been dealing with yesterday and the day before to do with Billy Smith, his channel Elvis Fans Matters, and the comments we're getting concerning this topic. Okay, guys, I'm going to come straight back. I'm going to sign off and come straight back. See you in 1 minute on Elvis Presley long lost footage, and thank you for joining me.